So the question is, are you doing something that you always dreamed of when you were growing up? So the answer can be, if you're studying or you're already in the business, it can be no, I'm still finding my way. And it might be that my story could inspire you to say, I might take a chance on this, even if it's very scary. If it's yes, of course, that is awesome. If you're already following that dream and it's already working out for you, it is great. But I start from humble beginnings. So to start my story, it's my dream, a boy's dream. So in this picture you see me and my brother, and I come from the Netherlands, Amsterdam for people that know the city more than my country. And we had a dream, and we love to kind of play around, and we made stories together, and you can call it kind of like escapism almost to some extent. Is we wanted to follow in the footsteps of people like Spielberg or even George Lucas and say like, is this even possible from the Netherlands? We are not in Hollywood, we are not in Los Angeles. In Hollywood, so that's something maybe hard and it feels a bit like, is this even possible for us to achieve? But we tried anyway. So we had like a little tape recorder and we started to record stories. We started to write stories on paper back then because computers were kind of just on the verge of doing things. And we started to film. Eventually we got like a little camcorder and we started to film our own stories. Like it could be with something like Lego, trying to make visual effects to some extent. Or practical effects, I have to say. And the film camera, that was where it really started off to get things together. Music, a bit of sound, a bit of acting, and creating something like this, cutting the video. So what you see here is my brother and I playing around. We were making movies, and we were writing scripts, and we were pretending. We're just fooling around. We didn't know what we were doing. We were just having fun as kids. So you see in the beginning, you see an army movie that we shot. Maybe we saw something from Kubrick a little bit too early on. Then Star Wars, of course, George Lucas. The fun part with us is like we always liked the dark side very much. So in our stories, the dark side always won. And James Bond, we did like the action-packed movies, the blockbuster stuff. So for a lot of fighting going on, it was just like boys, and we filmed it. And then slowly we got the gist of it. So we were still cutting tape as well on the video. A lot of fun, a lot of fun. So eventually that resulted into something a little bit bigger, because when we were growing up we were doing all these things and people started to like it a little bit. I studied a bit more into the direction of music and sound design, and also we did a little bit of, I think it was called not game design yet or game development, but it was called computer science or something. And we were a little bit older and we said, okay, we want to do something different in life. We just don't want to have like a job that's something that is worn us out. Like we want to try this out. So we said, you know what? Let's start a game company. So KeokeN Interactive, very short. We make original games, triple indie, double A, which means we are kind of in a mid-sized studio that creates or trying to be disruptive over triple A or larger blockbuster games. We create for PC and consoles. PlayStation, we use the engine Unreal to create our games. It's great because back in the day you need your own engine and your own engine team to create something like that. Of course for Steam, PC, Xbox and PlayStation, that is our main outlets, but we come out on more stuff as well. We even did Google Stadia, which is a little bit more technical, so you need to make a port for this. So then we have the other company. And we kind of use it as one. So we are a company that do games and also music. But it was just better to kind of make a label for it, which is called HUNCHBACK Studios. It's more busy with media productions. So what we are busy with and what we're known for are mostly the trailers and teasers that we did. And we started with the music and adaptive music to it. So custom music, adaptive music, and sound design. And later on we branched off a little bit more to do video productions as well. And that started very individual. So it was kind of me as an individual composer, trying out these things and yeah, just taking a chance, like risking it a little bit. And then after years of making music, mostly in an electronic scene, more like DJing, melodic techno, a little bit electronic, we started to make a bit more cinematic stuff. And it sounded all right. It was okay. It could be a little bit better. But we got a gist of it because we continued doing it, very disciplined. We just continued making that music. And then eventually, one of the pieces that we created got the attention of Marvel and Netflix. And they really liked the piece that we created and they thought it was the right fit for Daredevil. So we were kind of like, is this real? Is this something that's really happening? And yes, it was actually, it was not a spam email or something, it was the truth. But it was an existing piece of music, so it wasn't specifically composed yet, and then we made an adaptation to the trailer. So let's just dive into it. What was the result of this? This was quite surprising to us, because we were creating this for fun, and from one thing to another, like we had the right context, we were in the right events, and eventually it led to landing something like this. So we said, like, wow, we are just playing around to some extent, very professionally, of course. We are putting the time into it and creating something like that. And then we landed something like this, which is really substantial. This is kind of what you do it for. Like, you want to land something like this. And also, financially, this got us a little bit of money as well. And we invested that right into the game company, because that was actually a little bit more expensive to withhold. We said, okay, we need to create something. So we started with a horror project. And this horror project was really, but we didn't know really how to do it. So we didn't really study for it yet. And we didn't really have like a blueprint for doing it. It was just going for it. So just we see and we will learn from our mistakes. So what happened is we started up in the kitchen, few people, opened a few laptops, we stole a whiteboard from my sister's room, and we started to write good things, what we believe was important to create a game. And that means that after a week or two in the kitchen, we already got a bit tired of that, so we said, okay, we need to rent our first office. So when we rented our first office, it was a very, very small space. And then we got some second-hand material, some chairs, some stuff, and then we had a few laptops that we still stole from my sister, and that helped out a lot. So from then onwards, we said, okay, we need to also get funding, because you are having some issues, you need to have a little bit of liquidity going. So we dove a little bit more into work for hire, which means that we are doing business as it is. So for example, a Daredevil trailer, you can consider work for hire as well, because it isn't our original IP. So that got in some money. We had also a third partner, and he was doing more business on the side, kind of like acting like an angel investor, and continue its way. So from that onwards, we needed to come up with a concept. So we said, okay, we need to come up with a team. We need to know how to run a company, and we need to hire the right people. So, but then again, you don't have money. So how do you start something like that? So we had there was a subsidy in the Netherlands that could help out us, and what they did to us is they gave us 15,000 euros, or dollars, you could say as well. And we could kind of start slowly spin up with the first kind of way. And we said, like, okay, let's hire maybe an intern, give them a little bit of money in return for it. And then most of the stuff we did ourselves. So kind of being a jack of all trades, wearing multiple hats, not only being a director, creative director, but also composer and sound designer. And eventually that gets a bit tiring, and you can't create a concept like that with such a small team, or not on the ambition that we wanted to. So what we did is, eventually we needed to shift our concept, our horror concept down, because it wasn't really working out. We were pitching in a new idea. And since I was then still in the role of kind of creative director, coming up with the concepts, I came up with a space adventure on the moon. A very realistic adventure, kind of like Tomb Raider, but then in space. And of course, we were too small, like this was way too big to kind of realize. But we still did it. So we voted this in, and we said, okay, let's make a game on the moon. And this is our first game that we truly started on a commercial level. So what happened is, we first said we need to get some money in. So we said we need to do a Kickstarter, a crowdfunding campaign, and let's raise $100,000. And that was, for us, it was a lot, and especially in the Netherlands, because it wasn't too known in the Netherlands, was quite hard to do. So anyway, we did it. We said, you know what, let's just set it up. Let's see what we have. We already had a prototype running. We had already a few images that we could show. We had a very clear vision in what we wanted it to be, and we got it. So after like a month or 3 or 4 of working on the Kickstarter, which actually transferred our company almost to a marketing company to that extent. But people got the vision. People understood, okay, we know what these guys are up to. We like what they have. But we didn't have a track record, so people need to truly believe in it. So what happened after is we had the 100K, and of course we could grow the team a little bit. So if you think about the production process, you have kind of the ideation phase, you have a concept phase, you have the pre-production, you have the production phase and polish, and I call it post-production, or even post-polish. Depends a bit what you're telling the team. Sometimes I say that the deadline is a little bit earlier than the real deadline. Helps a lot. And then of course you have after release, you also have a lot of care of the game. So that's what we knew, but we also knew that we had a lot of people that we, this is a new one, thank you, that's very sweet. We also needed to have more people. So what happened is how a team works in games is we had programmers, you need level designers, you need 3D artists, and of course it needs to fit your game. We made a 3D game that was a first person and a third person adventure. And with that, of course, we couldn't really hire 15 people right away. But with the money, we eventually also went to travel the world, going to conferences like this, but also bigger ones. So think about a game conference in San Francisco, but also think about Gamescom in Germany, also in Scandinavia, and trying to find partners. Eventually, we found a partner called Starbreeze. Starbreeze is a Swedish company, and they said, we like what you guys are doing. We're going to invest $500,000 into you guys. So that, of course, spiked things up, and we could now have a true team. But this is a bit weird, because normally if you make a project, you're not chasing the ambition. Like, we didn't have a set tone, this is the game, so the more money we got, the bigger the game got. So, which is quite dangerous, I have to say, but we eventually managed. So that means we had 100K for the Kickstarter crowdfunding, we had 500,000 for kind of the publisher, so we made a deal with them, and then we could grow the team, and we were busy with that. So after 2 years being busy with these guys, helping us out, being pretty senior, things went south with the publisher. So as us as a green team trying to finish a game, the issue was that they had some problems. It's a big company, they were running around 500 people, and they had some big flops. And unfortunately, we were small fish in their ponds. We were almost sucked as the Titanic, kind of like a little boat, and sucks with the Titanic when it's sinking, we as well. So we almost needed to fire our whole company in the end process, which is horrible, especially in the beginning phase of trying to do something like this. So we were back again, and we needed to kind of reorganize our company. We were still very young. We still didn't finish our first game yet. So we said, okay, my brother actually had a burnout because of it, because we were also firing our friends, which was really a terrible thing because he didn't want to. Like, it was just more of a forced thing that happened to us, and we just needed to deal and take responsibility for it. But then again, the game wasn't finished. So with the last money that we had, we did all these events again. We went to conferences, and then again, I believe we were to Los Angeles, we went to San Francisco, and we went to Boston to 3 events after one another, completely exhausted, showcasing what we had. We found a publisher in London, and they looked at it and they said, pretty cool, but we will review it in like 3 months. And I'm like, okay, that's the end of it. Cool journey so far, but unfortunately we can't continue like this. But then they came back to us and they said, no, we actually want to invite you guys to come to London because we actually see potential in this. So they invested more, and we could finish the game, which ended up to be a 5-hour game, being received really well, scoring a 9 on Steam, which is really good, especially for a debut game to do something like that. And eventually costed around $1 million, let's say $1 million US. I would say the experience that we got is the line between being responsible and irresponsible is very thin. The moment that you are successful at doing something, people would say, wow, that's actually quite responsible, that's very entrepreneurial of you to do. If you fail, people would say it's a very irresponsible thing that you did. And the problem is, this is very thin. There's nothing in between. So when do you take risk? You need to truly, truly believe in what you're doing to do it. And most of the thing, this is maybe more easy visualization, is what we think it means that if we go to work and we do something, we work on our dreams, that we need to have always the best of us. But we are humans. We don't have this. So there's always moments where you're a little bit less, especially with creativity. You can't expect to have like the best of the best every day. You can try. It's of course always the intention to have. But you also should be a little bit more relaxed with yourself. This is another one. Okay. So that's good to understand. Eventually it led to having a physical release as well. So from going to an almost bankrupted company, we eventually made a physical product as well. We made a collector's edition. We made the versions for Xbox, for PlayStation, and then we could roll out with these guys for actually a second chance, which we were grateful for. So of course, because of that success, we said we need to continue. So what happens? We continue the dream. We actually were quite successful with the first one, still pretty much of stakeholders there, and we went for a second game, Deliver Us Mars, the sequel. Because we were searching for a couple of years for a publisher, and it was quite of an expensive budget because we were ramping up. The publisher that we had, they couldn't pay for it. Or at least we tried to, for about a year. And then there was another party coming in, and it was Frontier Developments, maybe you know it from Elite Dangerous or David Braben. And he believed in it. He saw this is a great space adventure and these guys are pulling it off with the first one, especially kind of like having those stripes, almost failing a company. These guys must really love what they do or else they would be out of the business. 2.5-year development. It's a bit different because the first one took 4 years because we were also starting entrepreneurs. We needed to figure it out. Then 10-hour game, which is double what we had in shorter period of time because we have experience. The team, we could ramp up to 30 people and of course new publisher. And this worked really well. Like we were like, wow, we could really follow the ambition. And let me really check shortly all the time. And we could push this into new territory. And especially if you look at the previous talk about George Lucas and how he did things and even Avatar, you had this mocap situations where you could record it. And a game like, for example, The Last of Us from Naughty Dog is a huge example for us how to create this rich adventure games, very story-driven, very emotional. So, of course, we wanted to ramp up the ambition and we went for a mocap. So, of course, like the suits are used for Avatar as well. And we shot this in London with Centroids. And I remember because we hired the director as well to be there. And I was looking at my brother because we were there for one day, but now we were the executives. So we are there as young boys, seeing that our dream is unfolding in front of our eyes. But we were not directing this specific part anymore, which is a bit surreal. It was a bit surreal experience because I said, we worked for this. This was our dream, but now it became even bigger than us. And that was really cool. And so that worked really well. Nice partner, worked quite some seniority there as well. And they pushed us to the limits to make something great. But then 4 months before the release, also this company had some trouble. And they had a publishing entity which were we under, and they canceled it. They canceled the whole entity. So we could finish the game, fortunately, but they couldn't really push it into the nice marketing assets as you would love to for a game like this. Because especially if you spend 3.5 million on the budget, you maybe could even spend $500,000 to $1 million for marketing. But of course, if you are canceling this entity, they are not doing this anymore. So it did sacrifice a little bit. Like it was still being received really well, so we scored around an 8, so it's a point less. But people seem to really like what we have been doing. And it's doing quite well. It's still there, it's on everything. It's on Xbox, PlayStation, it's on old gen and next gen. And during this development, we also wanted to do our porting ourselves. Very technical, it's just like making the port, your PC port, going to Xbox and PlayStation. But we also wanted old gen. So we did 5 ports while we were developing this, which is maybe not recommended for a relatively small team. So what then? Well, let me first show you what it is. So what did we actually create? Deliver Us Mars. So there's no such thing as an overnight success. What a lot of people will tell you is we look at that. We look at somebody's end result, we look at somebody's success, and we really want to know like how they did it, or we believe it's an overnight success. And also the media, if you look at nice things, like I did like a side job when I was younger at my high school as a cleaner. So what people would like to write is like from cleaner to massive game. But this is, of course, like it's a good title, it's a good clickbait, but it's not the truth. Like it's as if I changed in one night. And people believe in this. People sell this because it's a good story. So I would say, how can you kind of counter this? The more opportunities you get and you create yourself, the luckier you get. So you need to push through. It's a bit weird because you need to be so disciplined and have the perseverance that you continue and believe so much in what you're doing that you push and push and push. And we say that the moment that you, and of course you need to look a little bit at like the quality. Are you creating something that has value? Are you creating something that other people have interest in? You need to really ask yourself these things a little bit, but if you believe it in yourself, in the beginning it wasn't. My whole Deliver Us franchise, it was nothing, it was my idea. Nobody cared about this. Nobody really saw this. And all like big IPs started something like this. And some, if you compare it to other ones, you believe like, oh, but they had it easier, or they had it something like that. You believe that another artist, like they had better context, or they were raised with a silver spoon. I believe that everybody can do it, but you really, truly need to believe in it. So, what I wanted to say, as in takeaways of creating something like this, it doesn't matter if you're a composer, a creative, a visual artist, or whatever. You can apply this to everything, business as well. You really need to believe in your own vision. Like it's almost be egocentric about that. Don't listen too much to people that are not in the field. Even family. Family has doubt. Family still thinks that I'm playing Mario all day and maybe listen to music and Spotify and stuff. Not really. Actually, they know now it's a bit more serious than that. Actions speak louder than words. It's very simple. You've heard it before, but it is. Like, you can make business plans and continue with that, but it's not really that important. The most important is action. Like, the key to life, the key to whatever you want to reach is action. Not so much about thinking about it, not so much about writing about it, that's about wishing it or planning it. Like, it's not doing the thing. You need to just do it. You really, truly need to. Incremental changes have huge impact. So the moment that you want to do something, don't think about the end result right away. Think about the process. So, but one very important thing is whatever you do, creating music, sometimes you don't feel like there's progression. You feel like, oh, but we are standing still, there's nothing really happening for me. But think about the incremental changes, every little 1%. Think about a rocket. We are launching a rocket. It's 0.01% off. Eventually, it will end up in a completely different direction. This happens with you and your creativity and your energy as well. Environment shapes creativity. Really think about the people around you. Think about, you have sometimes people that are energy draining. You have people that are energy giving. Some people that are inspiring, some people are not. It can be family members that are not supportive. It can be anything, but surround yourself, especially if you're working with a team, surround yourself with great minds. And if it's not working out, try to work it out. If it's really something that you can do, you need to make a more extreme decision. So if it's in a company and somebody is toxic, like let's say there's one person not really working well, you think like in a team of, let's say, 40 people, this wouldn't really matter. It matters a lot. Like it's very contagious. So bad energy will flow through your whole company if you don't watch out. But the same happens with positivity. Perfection is insecurity in disguise. I think a lot of you guys will probably be perfectionists, and you use it as something as that it's a very nice feature to have. But and again, like perfection in a way, it's just being a bit insecure about the result. I think just make something good. Just release it. Just make sure that it's there. Like the games that we create, I see so many mistakes that we made, but a lot of people don't know. And then the next time you can do it better, and the next time you can do it better. And eventually, like, people even ask me, is this the best game that you created? No, it will be my next. And it will be my next. Is it the best piece of music you created? No, it will be my next. So you can always implement in the next step, but don't kind of like stare yourself into the abyss of nothingness in trying to create perfection. The perfection is not there. Like, just move on. Da Vinci, he wasn't ready with his paintings. He just abandoned it, and it became part of history. Don't be paralyzed by the fear of failure. This is something that happens a lot in the Netherlands. People are so fearful to be failing that they don't even start at all. They're like, okay, like they hear stories like that I have, and they're like, oh, this is a bit scary. Maybe we shouldn't do it. Just do it. You're already successful in failing right now. You're not even trying. So just try it. Like, there's nothing to lose. And the thing is, of course, be somewhat responsible. Think about what you can do, but just go for it. Just go for it. And if it fails, hey, good for you that you try. Like, you are actually one step closer in doing what you want. Pivot or preserve, very important as well. Like, at one point, you need to understand that there are moments where you say, okay, this is not working out. This is a dream, but how can I make it more lucrative? Like, we need to make our livelihood here. So you need to change sometimes a little bit of the strategy to say, okay, do this or do that. But then again, be quite careful. If you are following your dream, make sure you're still getting energy from it. So that's very important. So always do that. And like I said, I think Nike said it best, right? Just do it. Just go, do the action. Don't talk about it anymore. Don't tell your friends that you're about to do it. Just do it. Don't make a business plan. Just do it. Make the music, not plan for making music. Just make the trailer, not plan for making the trailer. So maybe to circle it back to the beginning. So what dream will you dare to start today, knowing that the only limits are the ones we set ourselves? It's only that. It's only that moment where we set ourselves that we can do something. We are like fearful for it. We think like other people know it better or whatever. I'm just I'm not like an expert in something, but I became it. I became an expert in certain things. I think it's very important as well. Like, you think that you need to reach the highest level of things, but you just need to do it. The people who are taking action and know how to communicate within those actions, those are the most successful. It's not the best people. A lot of the best geniuses in this world are not even heard. So just think about that. Just follow the dream. It's not so much at stake. The stake is, it's actually more, you will hate yourself at a certain point that you never tried. I think that will be more painful than trying and failing. So I would say try everything that you want. If it's creative industry, if it's like music, if it's sound, if it's level design, visual effects. Do everything every day a little bit to make your dreams come true. And even if it's just incremental, small, little things, it will eventually add up to be something huge. That's it, guys. Appreciate you listening. Thank you very much.